everybody says this, and you can read this in every single book. Don't have more than 5 focuses. And I think that's something that sounds so simple, but I hear founders and myself all the time are like, what if we do this? Or what if we do that? And 5 revenue driving focuses.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where every episode we get to interview real business owners who are going through real scaling journeys. They are sharing their lessons learned. They're sharing some of their struggles and challenges. And again, we're just being very real in hopes to help as many seven-figure business owners as possible in their own growth journeys. My name is Brett Gilliland. I'll be the host for today's episode. And I'm here with Tamima Shames. Tamima is the founder and CEO of Next Step Projects. And I want to welcome you to the show, Tamima. Thank you for taking time to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Brett. I'm really excited to be here. And honestly, it's super rare that I get to be on podcasts where I get to be super vulnerable about problems going on. And that's what I like to do because I think there's so much that you all can learn from. And so many people ask about the successes, and that's fantastic, but that's not helping you grow your businesses. So hopefully I can be of some help.
Yeah, it'll
I
be great. I appreciate you sharing. Can you please tell us a little bit about Next Step Projects so people have in their mind the proper context about who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, so I started, so everyone gets confused when they Google me and they see Next Step Talent or Next Step Projects. Next Step Projects is just our parent company. We founded this because we have multiple companies underneath now, so it just makes it easier to have that cohesive brand. However, they're all entertainment based, all under the same umbrella. Next Step Talent is my baby company. I started that when I was 21, right out of college. I had just graduated, and somebody told me that my old boss told me I should manage somebody. I was working in music, and just kind of happened, and it took off, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so even now I'm still reflecting on like, oh my God, how could I have been so stupid? But the reality is like we all are learning as we go, and everybody makes mistakes as long as you learn from them. So that is kind of how I got started, but now we manage talent on the Next Step Talent side. We manage talent that range from million all the way up to 15 to 20 million followers per platform. We have about 15 billion views across our roster right now. So we specialize in helping talent grow their channels, multi-platform. So YouTube, short form content, long form content, really from the creative development and understanding psychology behind social media. So that's on the talent side. And then we have a company that's going to be publicly launching, but I'll give a little sneak peek. And two of my previous employees from Next Step who are now partners on this company with me. They're awesome. It is a production company, so we're really taking what we do on the talent side and helping talent develop it further from a production standpoint. For all of you watching, YouTube videos can range from, they can cost a talent $1 million per video. It's similar to like a TV film right now. And so these are massive teams. Each of my clients have teams of 15. So not only are we as a company scaling our company, but we're also helping talent scale. So it's a different level of teaching people how to scale companies while you're scaling, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. And you have the industry specific knowledge that your clients need. And then for you to be able to help them grow their team around them the way that you've learned, that's pretty special. So that's cool. All right. So Tamima, if you were to share the top, I don't know, one or two key lessons for you as a founder, as an owner, as a leader in your growing businesses that might help another business owner, what would you share?
This is difficult because there's so many things to share here, but I would say the biggest thing I would share in terms of scaling is, everybody says this, and you can read this in every single book. Um, don't have more than 5 focuses. And I think that's something that sounds so simple, but I hear founders and myself all the time are like, what if we do this? Or what if we do that? And 5 revenue driving focuses. If you find a sixth, hold that for a different quarter or a different year. Um, focus in and become the best and don't lose sight of that, because as opportunities come, there's going to be opportunities for you to get off your track, especially in entertainment where things move so fast. And so for me, it's all about now honing in, because year one we were very honed in and then we kind of spread out, and you can't lead a team if your focuses aren't insanely clear, because you're leading fish to water and they have no idea what's going on. And something else that I learned with my company that has been really awesome is, again, something that might sound simple, maybe not, is have employees repeat back to you what the mission and what the goals of the company are, because I didn't do that for so long. And we were on a meeting and somebody told me what they think our mission was, and it was the absolute opposite of what it was. And the reality is your words are, founders' brains are creative. There's a million things that go on up here. And in order to become a successful CEO from a founder, you really have to think about how your words are actually being understood. And you can't know that unless you're letting them tell you. Because otherwise, you say, "Do you understand?" They say, "Yes." And you both are understanding entirely different things. So that would be number two. Um,
I want
and
to pause on that, Tamima, because between the focus lesson that you shared and what I'll call the clarity lesson that you shared, I think, again, you use the word simplicity, or like those may sound simple, but it's so huge. And a lot of us as business owners, we just assume that stuff. We're like, yeah, I see it so clearly in my head, and that's enough for me. But we need everybody on the team to be super dialed in on that clarity, and to the extent possible, how can we enroll them in a co-creative process on that clarity, so that it's not just what Tamima said, but it's what we
uh-huh,
all agreed to, what we're all creating, and it's
yeah.
so much more powerful. So I love the point you made about focus. I see way too many business owners trying to tackle, boil the ocean instead of getting really deep in one thing, or a few key things that will move the business forward. Couldn't have agreed more or said that better than you did. That was great.
And over the last year, I've struggled a ton with motivation, because we're in year four of our business. We started in 2020. And so I felt like we'd gotten to like this peak and I didn't know where to go from there. And the reality was is I needed to go right back to where I was in year one in terms of my focus. And I think that like realizing that and dialing back in, I was able to speak to employees, and now I have them each doing 5 focuses based on our pillars. And when they're doing that, I'm noticing that like a lot of them are like, "But what about this idea?" And I'm like, "That's a $5 idea versus your other idea that's $1 million idea." So I'm starting to realize which employees were kind of falling through. And I'm sure there's a million other business owners who are doing the same thing, because it's really difficult to stick to 5 things when you're creative. So 5 things that all lead to that one mission, obviously. So it's pillaring up. So that's been, a big lesson. And then the it's all the lessons that you read in books but no business owner listens to until it happens to them, and they're like, "Oh shit, I did read that like 7 times."
That's what
Hiring
they
and
were saying,
firing.
right? That's what they were saying.
Like, a few $100,000 lost later and you're like, "Oh, got it."
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and yeah, you said that with a smile on your face, but that's no joke, right? Like that's
yeah.
literally how much money we set up in flames sometime when we make the wrong hire, or we make the wrong strategic decision, or whatever. It's like lighting a bunch of Benjamin Franklins. Not a good scene.
You cut out.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We've had a little bit of
Set up
technical
I heard
difficulty.
You're good. I heard set up in flames.
Yeah, I think sometimes we set fire to a stack of money when we make a wrong hire, or we make a strategic misstep. But whatever the lack of focus, the lack of clarity, whether it's on the hiring front, or a business decision about which direction we should go, a lot's at risk when we get that wrong.
Yeah. And in terms of hiring and firing, one of the things that I was telling one of our other leaders the other day is there's two things that happen. One, you can take and acknowledge the mistakes that you made, whether it's you didn't lead well enough, your training was shit, the reason that an employee failed, but that doesn't mean that you need to keep them, because sometimes you can't alter your mistakes while still being in the mistake that you made. And so it's a hard thing to come by, but the reality is like those two things are separate. And so giving more and more chances doesn't mean that you're going to be able to fix, because it might be too deep at that point. And if or the person doesn't have the right skill set. But that's been a real struggle as we've grown and then had to scale back and then grown, because we've realized all of our holes in our infrastructure when we're doing that. It's not the people's fault necessarily, and it's the unfortunate nature. One of my good friends got laid off the other day, and she was telling me about her just because she was working at a startup, obviously 1 to 3 million range probably. And she was telling me all the things he was saying, and in my head I'm like, this CEO is sitting there crying because it's not her fault, it's his fault, and he knows that, but there's nothing he can do. It's too deep, and he has
Yeah.
to pivot to scale.
Right. And a lot of us, I mean, we're real people. We care about people. We have a heart. We want to help these
Yeah.
people, but at the end of the day, we have an obligation to the rest of the company and everybody else who's touching that company in some way, whether it's the customer, the client, the patient, whoever it is you sell to, other team members, your own family members who have to witness as you carry the weight of that team member situation that's not working out. Like so many others are affected by this one person that's not in a place to succeed, and yet we have a hard time making the necessary change. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, it's one of the worst days, but the best days as a business owner, because you get to help other people grow and lean into the ones who are ready and able to be the right fit. And it doesn't mean that person is a bad person. They're just not for the position they were put in.
That's right. That's right. Well, Tamima, we've already had several great lessons that you've shared. um, I want to double down on your focus areas. You said no more than five, and I was part of a high growth startup that we kind of talked about before I hit record. We used to have
Yeah.
five priorities as a company, five annual priorities, five quarterly priorities. We're like, no more than five, no more than five. And we beat that drum for a long time. What I learned with many years of growth at that company is that five was still too many. In my opinion, you
You're
don't have to
probably
take that.
right.
You
No,
don't
you're
have to take
most
that.
definitely right.
Yeah. So I counsel, I teach now that, no more than three is what I want to see. Um, but entrepreneurs know, like inside of themselves, they're like, but there's more. There's always more. I don't want or. And so they push the limits of what's possible, which is great about them. But it goes against all of the principles of focus and putting all of the energy behind the few things that make the biggest difference. So I'm just going to double down on your point about focus and say no more than five is many people can get to that point. No more than three. There's a relative few that finally master the discipline of focus enough to get down to three or less. But I would suggest that those are the ones that figure out how to really move the needle on the things that matter most. So, as a forcing
Mhm.
function, maybe try three, see what it does for you.
I I will. I mean, you're right. I think something too that I've noticed is a lot of people are struggling to understand what focus means in this day and age. And so they say, I can't focus. And the reality is, you can. You just need to take some of those ideas and put them in a notebook somewhere, hold them for a different time. And I have a new advisor that I got. And every time I bring something up, she's like, no. What are you talking about? She's like, go back, like she was like, that idea you had yesterday was good, why are we talking about something new today? And sometimes you need that person to just tell you you're dumb and get back in. But the reality is all your ideas are great. You just got to stick with one for you know a quarter, 6 months, a year to see it through.
Yeah, and think about the implications as your team grows. Every idea that has you shifting meaningfully in another direction is like a huge, it's all like a whiplash moment for everybody else. Where they go, "Whoa, well, now we're going this way," and then you twist another
Yeah.
direction, like, "Wow, now we're going that way." Yeah, and you're trying to
I
move.
learned that the hard way.
Yeah, you're trying
Yeah.
to move a growing number of people in targeted, coordinated action. That's the only way we win with a growing team is targeted, coordinated action. And when the destination moves or the approach, right, the strategy adjusts, you're just sending these ripples, this wake of change through your team that's just hard to keep up with.
Yeah. I think for me, I lost a lot of my motivation when I had gotten all of these ideas that were coming in and I didn't know where. And then my advisor said to me, like, how did you do it in the first place? Like, what are you good at that you did before you had a team of 15, 20 people that you're leading? And she was like, write those things down and then have them do those things. Why are you trying to do new things now that you have people? They're supposed to be doing the things that you were doing in the first place. And so, like, that kind of put it all into perspective for me and helped a lot. Because I think a lot of founders, like, once they get to that, like, all the idea flowing stage is so overwhelming. And then you're like, how am I going to lead a team and be creative and do everything?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And especially what complicates it further is that we get some energy, we get satisfaction, excitement from those ideas, right? It's like, oh yeah, and
Right.
here's a cool idea, and here's a cool idea. But if we want the whole to thrive, we need some focus, and we need to build in, let's call them rhythms for ideas to surface, right? So maybe
Yeah.
every quarter or every year we have planning offsites where new ideas can come in for consideration, but now we're in a rhythm of considering what we will do for the next period of time. And in
Hmm.
those moments, let's bring on the ideas. Let's pull out the ones that we wrote down. Let's talk about it. But during the sprint of execution between planning, the ideas just throw everybody off. So anyway, I love the conversation. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk to Mima about what it is you're wrestling with now that I might be able to help with that could help some other business owners going through similar things. So as you look to continue in your growth as a company, in your growth as a leader, what is something that I could help you with today? So we had a little bit of cut out
You're
in the
good.
tech. We'll edit that part. If you could tee up the issue again, I didn't hear it.
I didn't say the issue yet because it cut out.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Um,
Okay,
I'm trying to think. I mean, our main issue at this current moment in time is that we had two of our biggest clients, like income, helping to fund and funnel down the chain. And so as we scaled, we needed to train other people to be as great as we were, but we didn't do the training processes properly. And so now we're trying to go back and figure out how we can train people um, to improve the cash flow issue because entertainment specifically money hits very delayed, and so we want to keep scaling and be able to provide more and more for our creators. So for me, you know, we're not in a plate like a bad place by any means, but where we're at is I'm trying to figure out how we can continue to scale um while implementing these new trainings and focusing there, because sometimes it feels like employees aren't able to pick up on the things we're saying. We're hitting our deadlines and it's hard to enforce deadlines. So that's just something that we're working through right now. I know I jumped around a bit, but
that's okay. No, you were a perfect business owner, right? There's a few things kind of mixed in there. Let me try to pull out what I think are the core issues, and I'll check with you before we jump
yeah.
into ideas. But what I heard one thing in there is that new team members aren't always trained on may not be as capable as core or original founding members, right? Like you guys have certain
Yeah.
ways of doing things that are successful. You bring in new pieces to the puzzle, and it's breaking. It's not quite working the way that it used to. That's a
Yeah.
core issue, correct?
Yeah, and just to
Yeah.
elaborate further on that specific issue, um, it comes down to me not putting on paper what's in my head or struggling to put on paper my way of doing things that worked. And what I find is my 2 top employees who have been with the company the longest, they were really good at just following me around and, like, writing down everything I said and then, like, picking up on it. Now that's fantastic, but I can't scale a company by people following me around and writing down what I say. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, I don't even know what I say. How can I go back and fix this problem?
Yes, yeah, and that is, I would say that's very common, especially in businesses where there's a certain expertise in the business owner. And some business owners
Yeah.
are fantastic at sales and marketing, and they have to figure out how to pass that on to somebody else. Some business owners are very knowledgeable about their craft, right? They're a master, whatever it is.
Mhm.
In your case, you're exceptional at what you do, and you had a couple early people who could pick that up and
Yeah.
do it well enough, right? Not to mess it up. And now you got new people coming in, and you can't have them. You can't have all the new people following you everywhere, like you said. So you've got to come up with ways to get clarity about what does successful ownership of a role look like, and how do
Yeah.
I go and find the right person to plug into that spot, and then give them the right training to be able to do that role in a way that
Mhm.
produces the predictable outcome that we want.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's the issue. Um, you said already, well, I can't really scale a company that way, but can you try to put into, I don't know, some quantitative, measurable, like what is the cost to the business if you can't figure this out?
I mean, it's obviously a massive cost, so I need to figure it out. Um, because obviously I can't do the training. So, one of the things we've been working on is, like, scripts, that people have to kind of memorize, um, in their training process that are essentially how we operate as a company, or at least enough of the talking points to be able to go, and then essentially testing, but finding ways to motivate employees through that without them feeling like they're, like, under insane scrutiny has been a hard balance for sure.
Yeah, great point. So you want to get enough consistency, right? And
Yeah.
scripts are a way to push on that. But you want them to feel engaged and excited and some autonomy and some ownership so they don't feel like robots, right? So there's this
Well,
balancing
and
act
also
of
to give new ideas because I don't know every bit thing, like,
right,
we wanna
right. Let's
evolve, but I wanna know
bring
that.
new.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. Okay, so Tamima, I think this is a fantastic issue. Let's talk about practical ideas. Maybe none of these will land squarely for you, but I'll just share things that I've seen work in different
yeah,
situations, and then hopefully they'll help you some or trigger an idea and help others who are listening. So, one of the things that I found is that very intentional onboarding processes are a key to success here. What I mean by that
mhm,
is if you even if you do put the training together, many of us are as business owners feel this urgent need to get the person in the role, right? We're like, I needed this role filled 2 months ago. They're finally here, and we like
yeah,
drop them into the role, and we want them running
and then they
in that
fail.
role.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, yeah, and then they stumble on some things or fail. And so, as much as it's tempting to get them in and producing as fast as possible, we need to slow down that process a little bit when we bring them in and make
mhm,
sure that they're clear. Here's what success looks like. Here's the support or training materials that you have available to you. And I would even try to bring some of those in, I mean, as much as possible before they start. Like if you had some training videos or, some documentation that somebody could review before day one, even that just gets the ball rolling. and they're excited at that point. They're like, I get to start with, I get to start with the team over at Next Step Talent or Next Step Projects, and they're like, Tamima is amazing, and I like they're excited, right? So
Mhm.
how do we take advantage of that? Get them going through at least some primer information before even day one, and the best people will, they'll do whatever they can to get it to get to that, right? They'll be like, yeah, I want to consume as much as I can before I even get there.
Mhm.
So I would try to front load the process with any welcome slash training videos as I can. I would also used an idea I've shared on the podcast before, but I'll share it again. I call it riding the trains, and it comes from a story of, like, think of a metro subway system, like some large
Yeah.
commuter system where the subway's a little scary. It's run down. There's graffiti. There's trash. There's scary people on there. Like, I don't feel comfortable as a quote unquote, I don't know, normal writer or business person getting on this thing. And so ridership is down, and a new leader comes in to fix it. Okay, this is the background
Mhm.
of the story. New leader comes in to fix it. And what the new leader requires is that every person on her team must ride the trains once a week. Okay. Well, if you want to fix the problem and your leadership team is riding the trains every week, they really see it from the client perspective. They
Mhm.
see the journey that's being created. And so in the onboarding process, if you can create a situation where your new team member listens in on a client engagement with somebody, that, a current situation where they just get to listen in on maybe a sales call, they listen in on an onboarding call, they listen in on whatever those, I don't know what those touch points look like in your business, but
Mhm.
a new team member gets to see what it's like every step of the process. I know you don't want people following you around forever to figure it out, but there is some level of real experience in each of the touch points that gives them perspective and helps them see what success looks like.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go away completely from them seeing successful modeling of the behaviors, but
Mhm.
we want to supplement that with training videos, documentation, anything that they can consume on their own that's leverageable, right?
Mhm.
There's make it once, consume it many times types of
Yeah.
training. Um, so maybe more intentional in the onboarding process, maybe more videos, more documentation up front that they can start consuming, and then some more limited but appropriate amount of shadowing to see how it happens before we turn things over completely to them. And
Mhm.
I would say, as a principle, in any situation where we want somebody to pick up a new skill that they haven't done before, I would model it first and have them shadow you while you model. It doesn't have to be you, it could be one of your team members, right?
Mhm.
But somebody successfully demonstrate while the person learning is watching, shadowing. And then I
Mhm.
would have a preparation conversation for the time when the learning person, the learner, is about to do the thing, and the demonstrator is now shadowing, right? So I want to
Right.
use this principle of shadowing. So one time they watch it happen successfully, there's a little talking about it before that to explain what's going to happen. Then they watch it, then a little talking about it before they try the next one, and then we flip and they try it while they get some coaching. So there's
Mhm.
still a fair amount of investment up front to get the transfer of knowledge. But if you're doing something really unique that you want to preserve, you have to build in some of this handoff up front, and then ways
Mhm.
to make sure that the process is consistent going on. So I don't know if that was helpful, Tamima. Do you have any
Yeah.
follow up questions around that?
I don't think anything specific. I'm just trying to think of how it specifically applies to us, um, given that there are limitations around it. Because certain talent only, like certain conversations can only happen once for our company. So like there's only certain times that we're able to have these conversations. Just because with talent, it's like an onboarding client meeting. Once you're further down the line, your conversations are more casual. So it's not something I would want anybody
Right.
else to see until they get to that point. So just figuring out like, and I guess that comes down to my timing and making sure I'm hiring people, like thinking about the timing alongside new
Well,
clients so that they're
even if it
talking
doesn't
about.
work out perfectly every time, you should at least be thinking about how is every client interaction um, going to serve my talent development needs, right? So what I
Yeah,
mean by that is you probably should never have a one-on-one conversation with somebody again. Maybe that's an
you're
exaggeration, right?
no, you're right. You're right.
So every
Yeah,
meeting with a client, who can I bring along so that they can pick up something? And and the other thing I would ask is, are you meeting with these people via technology virtually, or are you meeting in person with
yeah.
them?
No, no, no. Sometimes in person, but mostly text, call, like email, so I can record things.
Yeah,
FaceTime.
I would just say, hey,
Very
look,
casual.
yeah, I would say, look, there's nothing professional about this. This is just us having a real conversation, but it will help me with the training of my team. Are you okay if we just, I mean, just a simple
Record
thing
it.
up front? Yeah, and then it's like like as many people as you want to share that with can shadow what you
Yeah,
just did with that client. So
or
anyway,
even for notes purposes. Yeah,
right, yeah,
yeah,
notes. Like I just want to
or
make sure that I capture everything that you said. I don't want to miss anything.
yeah.
And so, is it okay with you if I record? Most people are going to be fine with it.
Of course, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Anyway, I love that you're thinking about scalable ways to bring the knowledge or bring it down or push it down or spread it among all the necessary team members. And then over time, then you've multiplied the number of people who can pass that on to others. Right now, it feels
Hmm.
very narrow. It's you and a couple people.
Yeah,
But as more people get that understanding, see those videos, learn from what you're doing, now you're multiplying the multipliers, if that makes sense.
right. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, Tamima, this has been a great conversation for our audience. These are issues, both the lessons that you shared and the challenge that you brought up are issues that many seven-figure business owners are trying to figure out. So thank you for bringing real conversations, real lessons, real challenges that we could wrestle with together.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I hope this was helpful for everyone who's watching.
It's so helpful. If you could please tell people if they want to learn more about next step projects or connect with you on social, how would they do that, Tamima?
You can follow me on Instagram, Tamima Shames, Next Up Talent on Instagram as well. And then my LinkedIn is my name. Feel free to reach out. Happy to chat. Love connecting with new people and bouncing ideas.
Wonderful. Okay. And Shamus is spelled Shames if you're just
Yep.
listening to this. So make sure you check out Tamima Shames. You can connect on LinkedIn, Instagram, and look at Next Step projects or Next Step talent to find what they're up to. So thanks again for being here. Tamima, you're a great guest.
Thank you for having me again.
All right, everybody listening, please share, like, review, comment, do all those things to help this episode and all the other great conversations we're having with real business owners get in front of as many seven-figure business owners as possible. These are challenges that are common across this stage of business, regardless of the industry, regardless of how many businesses you've run or whatever. These are very common things at this stage, and we just want to get these ideas, this help in front of as many people as possible. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you on a next episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast.